We're moving a little bit further into the digital space of children's entertainment creation and dissemination with this channel, Press Play, reaching young audiences and parents through apps and digital channels. As many of you know, young audiences increasingly consume content on, well, not only young audiences, I think all audiences of all ages, increasingly consume content on a variety of platforms. And aside from traditional linear television viewing, children watch their favorite shows or movies or videos on apps, subscription or ad-supported video-on-demand services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Hulu, or some of the platforms that you will learn about today, or open platforms such as YouTube. In this session, we wanted to get the content creator's point of view on the changing distribution and broadcast landscape. And as a result, we invited creators of very popular interactive tween series, Ruby Sky PI, Jill Golick, the head of interactive for DHX Media, Bryce Hunter, and YouTube creator Billy Reed, the creator of popular Pancake Manor channel on YouTube, to join us for this session. Unfortunately, Zach Reeder, who is I think still listed in the program, of Hallmark's Spirit Clips, couldn't join us because of scheduling issues, but he'll be here on Thursday for our Meet the Buyers session. And I would like to thank Lana Castleman, the editor of Kids Screen magazine, for agreeing to moderate this session. And over to you, Lana.
Thanks, Christoph. I think he got the introductions pretty much out of the way, so in a very nice and concise manner. So I think perhaps we can just get started with each of you just explaining a bit more in detail what the projects are that Christoph talked about and sort of what you're doing in this space. So I think, Billy, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Well, we created a online musical video series called Pancake Manor, and essentially the videos are 2 minutes to 3 minutes long, and they usually feature original music. Occasionally we do covers of the classic kids songs, but most of the videos are original songs, and we distribute it through YouTube. And recently we've moved on to DVD sales and CD sales and things like that, but we started on YouTube.
And I think there's a little clip, an example.
Yeah, I think we have a little trailer to show.
Just to give everybody a better idea.
Yeah.
Okay, follow my lead. Here we go. Shake, shake, everybody shake now. Come on, let's find shapes. I see a circle. I'm a superhero. Look at me go. Pour that syrup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What do you think happened next?
So there it is.
And you're also the performer.
That's right. I write all the songs and I perform both those puppets. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Developing a split personality at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Just a wee bit.
And Jill, do you want to talk about Ruby Sky?
Ruby Sky PI is an online detective series about a teenage detective, Ruby Sky, and it's a web series, so you find it online, but it's also interactive, so the interactivity is built right into the narrative. You can examine the clues that Ruby finds and help her solve the mystery. And we've got a lot of kind of world-building websites that help build out the reality of the universe of the show. Very active social media channels as well, and we've released 2 seasons of the show so far, and we've just finished work on the 3rd season, and that will be available in Canada this spring exclusively on cbc.ca/kids.
And I think we've got a sample.
Yes,
one of the episodes.
We've got a sample. I've got a little. I brought a series trailer with me, and it does have some clips from our 3rd season, The Maltese Puppy. So this will be kind of a world premiere.
I didn't know that.
You, my dear, are a regular Sherlock Holmes. People ask me, Ruby, how do you get yourself into these situations?
Tell us why your spirit haunts this library every night.
I have a mystery for you.
Its name is Ruby Sky. She's always sticking her nose into other people's business.
Don't laugh or anything, but I always wanted to be a detective.
There's something different about you. Don't tell me.
Did you catch that? The way his eyes move to his left, our right?
You're collecting evidence against me?
No.
You are the greatest sister ever. Thank you.
Well, technically, yes.
So she's not for me?
Oh, aren't you so sweet?
Can you tell me what you were doing Wednesday night?
I'm not a suspect. Am I a suspect?
Go away, Ruby.
Yes, please go away, Ruby.
You knucklehead.
You have totally lost your mind, Ruby Sky.
You stay out of it.
It's a detective thing.
Not again.
Thanks for rescuing me, Ruby.
You know what, Ruby? You're a pain in the butt.
And Bryce being from DHX with, I think it's arguably the largest kids catalog now for an indie, I think. It's a bit different from our first two panelists. So if you want, I know there's like a ton of stuff you're doing. So
well, DHX Media is really hard to encapsulate into a short introduction. But long story short, we have now the largest independent catalog of kids and family content in the world, which is pretty exciting. Over 10,000 half-hour episodes, over 300 brands. Familiar ones too, like Inspector Gadget and the Teletubbies, Caillou, Johnny Test, Yo Gabba Gabba, and most recently we picked up the Degrassi Epitome, the company that owns Degrassi. So a very interesting company to run the digital channels for, and not really just the digital channels, but the entire sort of digital strategy, which involves everything from YouTube to actually app development, app deployment, and games. And even internally, we deal a lot with enterprise infrastructure and sales teams support and so forth. So there's a small sort of DHX sizzle reel that kind of encapsulates our thing. It's a little out of date. It's from January, but it's still good.
Yeah, just before we get to that, maybe could you sort of highlight some of the channel-specific stuff, like the YouTube channels
absolutely.
and the
Pico
name?
Tunes.
Pico Tunes, yes, that's the name.
So we've recently, as of basically last year, dove very deep in on the YouTube side of things. We've really been working very intensively with Google and YouTube on a bunch of different initiatives, from subscription video on demand to advertising video on demand and custom channels, as well as defensive copyright on YouTube is obviously a big part of our discussions with them. So that's a major piece there with digital delivery. And the other piece being Pico Tunes, which is our relatively still in its early stages, but very much live and ready to be used kids subscription video on demand service that's available on iTunes. It also is coming soon to Android. But that project is one of our babies right now, and just figuring out a way to provide a really comprehensive, very comfortable, very kid-centric approach to video delivery, and making it fun, making it interesting, making it exciting, and not just your typical sort of menu-driven experience.
Great. We can run the sizzle now. I guess getting right down to the question of content, I'd like each of you to maybe talk about why you chose to pursue those specific, projects, content that you did. Was it based on filling a perceived hole in the market or an underserved demo? Maybe we'll start with you, Billy.
Yeah, well, I've been making videos for over 10 years now, so I mean, it took a while to kind of get to. I mean, I started doing this about 2.5 years ago. So I've been writing a lot of music and trying different types of videos, music videos, comedy videos, and I did animation. I did a short animation series for a company here in Toronto, and I just tried everything. Eventually, I decided, I think children's entertainment is something that I could do really well. So it took a while to sort of get there, and I felt like it's the kind of work that works best for me, and I think it's working. So I think it was a good decision, but it took a while to sort of figure out what it was that I was best at doing. So
Right, and it's preschool, really.
yeah, preschool, like ages 2 to 6. Yeah,
it's a bit different, for example, from what Jill's doing.
right, a little bit younger. Yeah.
So, Jill, do you want to talk about where Ruby came from and why?
Well, I made my career as a television writer for most of my career, and I've worked on many properties, including a lot of preschool. But I also had a software company in the 80s with developing educational software for the very first home computers. And so I always had this love of interactive, and I really wanted to play in the interactive space as it started to develop. And I was looking for a property that I thought would work well in the interactive space, and I noticed that there was a lack of genre programming available for tweens. Most of what we're seeing right now in the tween television space particularly is comedy or animation, and there was almost nothing being delivered to kids in an audiovisual way that was mystery, which is such a staple of everything else, film and books and adult television for sure. So I thought, it would be a really good place to sort of take something new in the interactive space, because it would fill a gap that television wasn't filling. And also, I thought there was a need for more girls in kind of powerful lead roles. And so those are kind of the hallmarks of Ruby Sky PI.
And Bryce, again, it's a bit different because, obviously you're not creating the content, but you're figuring out how to put it on these different platforms. So I'm just wondering what it was that made you sort of go this way with Pico Tunes and the YouTube channels.
Sure. Yeah. So specifically those two, the YouTube one was actually a kind of a bizarre story where we ended up being one of the first premier partners to do the subscription video on demand service with YouTube. And prior to that point, we hadn't really engaged on that front in any real meaningful way, despite, I would argue, a lot of internal interest, but at the same time, a lot of internal confusion and uncertainty on that front because of the impact that might have with particular brand holders and the creatives that are involved. Didn't really want to see their stuff given away for free. And so there was a lot of discussions back and forth as to how we wanted to handle this. And incidentally, by getting a lot of our stuff up onto YouTube with the SVOD system, which wasn't immediately very successful for us, arguably, on that front. It was actually getting our foot in with YouTube that was the real big win there. And now our ability to distribute and easily develop up channels by getting so much of our content up there and doing a lot of defensive copyright protection, which has been a really fun and interesting take on it. Actually, it's really fun. That side of it's really fun. And coming up with creative ways to not exploit fans but also deter pirates and see if we can figure out a happy medium where everyone's winning. So YouTube was kind of just born out of convenience, to be quite honest with you. We'd done a lot of work, and then it was like, if we put in a little bit more work, maybe we can get a lot more out of this. And sure enough, we've had now this amazing relationship with YouTube, and have been pushing so much of our content in that direction, and have been really talking about new and different weird exploration things we can do on that front with piloting content there and so forth. But for Pico Tunes, though, specifically, that was definitely a case where we really felt that the industry was underserving the actual kids in the space when it comes to preschool. So for a long time, we developed out the technology side of it, and
it's not just a straightforward SVOD app. It's got games and a bunch of other
yeah,
features on it
exactly.
too, right?
There's a lot of interactive elements to it that go beyond just typical video delivery. We took a lot of time to research how kids were behaving, literally the physical ways that they hold the device, how they're actually interacting with it, and then trying to figure out a way that, how can we be different and better than something like Netflix, which has a lot of our content anyways, and is doing a great job of delivering on these platforms as well, and not, go up against Netflix in a way that's also going to, alienate a partner. So that's been the very weird part about PicoTunes is we have all these broadcast partners internationally, and we want to make sure that they're all well served, but we're also interested in exploring these new markets in ways that they're not ready to go forward with yet. And so yeah, PicoTunes was definitely a weird one to kind of get out the gate and convince a lot of people that it was a good idea. So we actually started off with a very small sample. We only had 5 shows up there initially, with a couple of like sort of interactive overlay pieces, and it's grown quite substantially. Now we have hundreds of hours of shows up on it as we've developed out the technology back end. And now we're getting to the point where we're actually going to sort of do a big retrofit on the front end too now. So it's very much deep in development now again, which is kind of fun to be having the cyclical approach to development with those.
I noticed that there's a lot of people sort of delivering content in that way to the preschool market. Do you guys have any plans to do other age groups, or can you tell me more?
Yeah,
the focus
absolutely.
is on the kid.
Yeah.
On
So
the youngest group?
when we first launched, it was actually with the designs of going at preschool, and but we launched with tween content and like young teen content in general. It's pretty much all the way from like 2 all the way to like 13, and we had like the old Super Mario Bros. Shows even there and stuff like that. So we had a lot of retro content in addition, and we were like, you know what? We'll see what this attracts. We'll see what kind of a consumer base this does attract, and it was predominantly like overwhelmingly preschool. It's a safe environment. It's very closed. It's very clean and ready for kids to interact with, and it's not the type of environment too. And this is our joke around the office for Netflix is we had one sales rep who likes to tell a story of him coming home and giving his iPad to his kid and getting him set up with Bow on the Go or something like that, and then he comes back 10 minutes later and the kid's watching Nazi Hunters, and he's just like, oh shoot, I need to make sure that never happens again. And so those types of experiences really help to obviously seed the idea for the project, and then execute on it became this huge challenge of like figuring out what's the right demographic, what's the right timing, and what's the right sort of like approach for the interface.
So that sort of moves on to the whole environment, as we know, both in terms of online video, especially YouTube and apps. They're incredibly crowded landscapes. I think there's well over 1 million apps available in the App Store right now, and at least 10% of those are directed at kids, and that's just iOS apps. That doesn't include Android, and all the other platforms that are proliferating. And then on YouTube, I don't even hazard to guess how many billions of pieces of content are available there, not to mention sites like Dailymotion and Bevo, and then you pile on top of that the Netflixes of the world. And how do you even begin to attract attention? How do you differentiate? How have you differentiated yourselves?
I mean, for us, it's just we try to create quality content. I mean, plain and simple. You have to create something great that you're proud of, and you have to believe in it. I mean, there's a part, you have to be a little crazy in a way to do what we've done, what a lot of us have done. In that, I decided to do something completely different, and there was no fan base, there was nothing there, and I started from nothing, And so you have to believe in it. I believed in it, and maybe it was a little crazy, but you have to sort of feel like the content is great, and I have to be proud of every video, and for me that's the most important thing. I think the audience sees that. I think the parents see that. Kids can find these videos and watch them, but they're not all great quality. And I think the parents, when they see their kids, what are they watching here? The parents get more engaged. They're more interested. They're more interested in finding you online, writing to you, and letting you know, wow, we really enjoy this content.
Right. So beyond the belief in the content,
Mhm.
I mean, there must have been something you did to start attracting attention. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the quality gets people to come to our website, to come to our YouTube page. You know, there's a lot of kids channels out there, but I don't think there's a lot of kids channels that get a lot of engagement, like parents who are like actively writing to those channels and saying, "Wow, this is awesome." You know, so for us, I mean, it's all about the songs and the quality of the video. I think that.
I would also, we were talking last night about this exact same thing, and the colors. I think are like a huge factor for your brand.
Right.
Like it's, you know, significantly visual.
Sure.
You go through
Yeah, I
all the
agree.
different, like your thumbnails, just period. Like, you know, dealing in iTunes, dealing in any sort of app space, dealing in, you know, YouTube in specific. So much of your brand is literally dependent, A, first and foremost on your keywords, and then B, on that little tiny thumbnail that people are going to see.
Right.
So that has to be, that's your first place for brand engagement. That's your first place where all of your audience is going to see that thing and be like, yeah, that one, you know? Like,
yeah, I agree. Like the first thing they'll see is the icon on YouTube. So that's the first thing they'll look at. But you're right, keywords is a huge factor. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the quality content, people won't keep coming back to that video. And that's what's helped us, is that we're seeing, you know, kids are coming back, they're watching these videos over and over and over again. And I think there's a lot of channels out there where the parents, they don't approve. Maybe it's like, they know it's not good quality, so they're not going to watch it again. So yeah, it's really important to have those keywords. It's really important to have a great icon that's very colorful, but it's also very important to have the quality there too. You know, you have to back up those icons. It has to be a great video too.
Yeah. I think that's true for us too. The quality is really important. That we set out to make a show that didn't look like it was a YouTube show. It looked like it was a great quality show for any screen anywhere. But we use every marketing strategy we can think of. So we have like we're very strong in the social media. We used a lot of Facebook in 2010 when we first launched.
And as you were telling me, though, you don't rely primarily on YouTube for your distribution, so it's a bit different.
Yeah, YouTube is,
Billy.
we don't, I mean, because Ruby is narrative, it's not as good a space, YouTube isn't as good a space for narrative as Blip TV and Coldcast, which is now defunct, where people go to actually watch web series. So those will have been where our primary views are. Much more so than YouTube, although it's good to be on YouTube because it embeds on Facebook and the player plays there and you get a lot of views that way. We have, I mean, because we have a teen audience, we now run 4 Tumblrs that are quite busy all the time. 3 of them are character-based and one is sort of more about the production as a whole. We have Pinterest, Instagram, just like it's everything. Twitter, it's all really busy. I spend a lot of time late at night emailing bloggers, particularly teacher bloggers, librarian bloggers, parenting bloggers, telling them how proud I am of my show and asking them to look at it. One thing we do at the very beginning of every season is we sort of think, who are the niche audiences that we can find online who will appreciate this content, and then we will, you know, really target them with our marketing, reach out to them, use keywords that they will appreciate, create GIFs that or GIFs, depending on how you want to pronounce it, that they'll like. There's a lot. We also have this massive content approach. So we have on our websites, when we're rolling out a new season, there will be new content every single day, often multiple times a day, so that there's just always this flood of stuff for kids to do.
Well, we're in a good position realistically to also redirect a lot of our traffic. In addition to the content quality, in addition to trying to provide the best experience when you get to that place, we are lucky in the sense that we are able to do a lot of traffic rerouting, so to speak. So, you know, we can take one group who's really excited about this one brand and be like, probably, we're pretty sure they're going to also like this brand over here. So, for example, good crossover between something like Caillou and Yo Gabba Gabba, or Caillou and Teletubbies, very similar age brackets, very similar demographics. And so you could say, okay, well, realistically, if we started to introduce some of the advertising for, to push people to a different particular channel, that works really well for us. In addition to your, the more grassroots types approaches, for just actually getting the word out, which is so critical, and the social media, which is very important as well, which quite honestly we don't do enough of nearly, to support, because we have 300 brands, and it's very difficult to provide adequate support to all those different brands in the same way that you're doing for your individual brands, which is a major differentiator between the two of us.
I have two really practical examples. Can I give them?
You may.
So last season we did a show, a mystery called The Haunted Library. It was set in a library, and the clues involved many, many popular children's books. So we built a website called odirilibrary.com, which was the website for the fictional library, and there's some character stuff and narrative stuff on that site, but there are also hundreds and hundreds of book reviews, interviews with authors, book trailers, all kinds of stuff, repurposed stuff that we found on the internet. And we discovered that there's a huge community of people on YouTube called booktubers, and all they do is video book reviews. So we would just go and watch their reviews and find ones that we thought fit with our brand and put them on our site, and we'd make playlists on our YouTube channel, and then we would always leave a little message for the booktuber saying, we love your book review and we're going to post it on our site on such and such a day. Well, don't you know that they went and looked at our show, and some of them made videos about our show, advertising it to their community. So that was really very effective for us. Another thing we did, there's an online community, very active, fans of the Vlog Brothers, John and Hank Green. And they call themselves Nerd Fighters, and they have a secret signal that they do. And there are tens of thousands of these Nerd Fighters online. And so it's a really great YouTube channel with really great values. And so we built a few little secret things into our videos that Nerd Fighters would know and recognize and appreciate. And we gift them, we turn them into gifts, and we just sent them out to the tumblers that are followed by Nerd Fighters. And they love the gifts because they were images that that group liked, and they got reblogged thousands of times in a matter of hours. And many of the people went and said, well, where does this image come from? And then they sought out our show, and we saw many, many subscriptions on YouTube as a result of those things. So it was giving, we're not, it's not direct advertising, but it's talking to niche communities about things that they appreciate, and then letting them come back and discover us as a result.
So much more organic. And for that age group, it's especially important, because the last thing they want is something that's been recommended to them by, I don't know, their mom. Well, it's true for that age group. So, I mean, that all sounds pretty labor intensive. Can you talk about the resources involved in executing something like that?
Ruby has been supported by the Independent Production Fund from the beginning, and then we've had additional partners come in. So we've been a pretty well budgeted production for a web series. A lot, but most of our budget will go to production, traditional film production. But usually I have a social media coordinator who's working with me, and we'll execute all those things together.
So it's just the two of you?
Two of us, maybe an intern or a volunteer or two will help, but it's small.
And you don't sleep?
No, I don't sleep, except in movies.
Okay. That's probably a great time to do it. So, Billy and Bryce, because you have so much stuff, yours appeals to preschoolers, and you do a lot of programming for preschoolers. Absolutely. It's a different case with marketing. It's really about parents first, likely.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully at this point preschoolers aren't just trolling YouTube.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Unaided.
Yeah.
But so
it's very interesting because like I said, I've been on YouTube since it started, and initially I was marketing to teenagers, and now I'm marketing to people in their late 20s, 30s, and the parents of these children. So they're very active on Facebook. We have a very active Facebook page. Like they love hearing about what we're doing. They love seeing behind the scenes photos of the shoots we're doing. But in terms of like marketing, just back to keywords, like we want to mostly do original songs and videos, but we know that for that age group from 2 to 6, they're looking for wheels on the bus and specific shapes or colors. So occasionally we'll do a video that's like a classic video, and that's sort of like a gateway video. If they see that, they'll see that video just from the search, then they'll find our other original videos. So we're doing that more and more now. We're just occasionally we'll do a straight up, classic song that people are searching for in order for them to find our other videos.
So kind of like bait.
Yeah, it's like bait. We're luring them in.
Trojan horsing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, for us, marketing to parents is realistically what we're doing for the most part. We're marketing to parents and then trying to engage the kids. That's really the core mantra. It can be very, very expensive if you wanted to go traditional routes. It can be very cheap but very labor intensive if you want to go non-traditional routes. And so we've been experimenting nonstop with all forms because realistically every 6 months it's a totally new ballgame. So we have tried everything from the typical, like the more labor intensive blog routes and Tumblr routes and so forth, to very expensive sort of ad buys on things like YouTube and Google and Facebook, and with the agencies and everything to try and find out what is our prime cost, and is there a way to actually like combine different strategies in order to not spend too much but also not do too much effort, so that we're not killing people, we're not forcing people to sleep only in movies, and things like that. So it's been good. Honestly, we've seen great success though. The biggest and easiest success we've seen has been like on the YouTube front, where we've been routing people from our existing catalogs of content to new catalogs of content. That's been really successful for us.
So that's pretty much just by making recommendations.
Yes.
On
yes.
YouTube. Like if you like this, you'll love.
Yes. Yeah.
And do you do that with annotations or with embedded video, or how do you do that?
So in our case, we do it with annotations, and also there's a couple other like internal like tools you can do, like programming from Claimed and stuff like that. So, yeah. So
how does the traditional media buy compare?
It's expensive. It's good though. It can be very successful. The big difference being nowadays, it's all about what's your cost per user, really, at the end of the day. So that also comes back down though to the quality of the content and whether or not the people want to see it. So the best types of buys that we've been using have been things where it's actually based on an acquisition of a user, or whatever we qualify as an acquisition of a user, or on an actual like click through to a watch of a video or click through to a buy of a piece of content. So that way we're not paying for the people that don't really care about our stuff or maybe misdirected to that area, and at the same time too we're paying a little bit more per user when we do that, but it's you're getting high quality people in the horrible marketing jargon terms, but you're getting people who actually want to see your stuff. And not a bunch of people who are just going to see it and bounce away, and not get that retention, not want to come back, not want to see where this project goes.
Yeah. So if you advertise on StumbleUpon, for example, you'll get billions of people will come to your site and they'll just bounce off again in 40 seconds. So that's a waste of money, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So speaking of retention. How important is content churn? Like, what is that like? how often do you have to refresh stuff? What do you have to do to keep them?
Yeah, for Picotunes, for example, what we're doing is we're launching a new brand every week, and that is taking on different incarnations. But we're also lucky to have so many brands that we can do that. We've got a pretty long run rate before we're going to run out of them and have to start recycling them. And right now, it's been a launch of 13 new episodes with a new brand every week. And so that's been pretty cool, and we've seen fairly successful response on that. People are saying they like that pace. They're interested in it. It's 13 new episodes for their kid to watch in a week, and arguably with hundreds of hours of content that they probably still haven't even dove completely into yet. Our biggest problem on that front then becomes, how do we give a child a user interface that's not incredibly overwhelming, or takes them 5 minutes to scroll through all the content, and that's actually one of the biggest challenges we're dealing with right now, and that's one of the biggest changes we're making to Picotunes right now. Whereas with YouTube, the channels that we're running and managing are realistically, we're looking at more like 2 new clips, and realistically episodes usually a week. So it's vastly smaller in scale, but at the same time too, you're also dealing with something that people are going to be likely hitting less often, whereas Picotunes, the goal is to have people using it quite consistently.
And so with the YouTube, is that in reference to the paid subscription channel? Or
no, actually
that's
more
just
so like the Teletubbies channel, and we've got a Caillou channels up, and we've got a variety of different other channels we're starting, and it's actually that side of the business is really fun and different, and very different than the subscription video on demand service. So really just free channels with advertising, and that sort of known quantity that whenever you put your kid in front of YouTube, you're going to be putting them in front of advertising, and so we've seen moderate success with the SVOD stuff and huge success with the AVOD stuff. Seems like people are really comfortable with that trade-off.
Well, that's what they were trained to do by watching TV.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's not that different than
advertising
the TV
on
model.
TV is.
Yeah, but
that's the trade-off, right?
But Teletubbies was never on a channel that had advertising on it. It was always a PBS kind of.
It was on BBC. CBBS originally, and then it was also sold around the world.
And TVO,
But different other spaces.
Yeah. Oh, they did, eh? But is YouTube giving you like a package of advertising that's specific for that audience?
Oh yeah, everything's like heavily curtailed. We're very judicious with that side of the business, because the last thing we want is something that's like wildly inappropriate. For kids to see. So that was actually one of the keystones in actually us starting to do that, which is also why for the actual AVOD channels, we only started the Teletubbies one, it's only 2 months old, and that's our oldest one. And the Caillou ones and for others are much more new.
And so for Jill and Billy, who do not have a catalog of 10,000 half hours, how does it work in terms of content refresh? Like, how are you just scrambling to keep up with demand, or?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like prior to making children's videos, I found like the views would go up and then they would just level off. Like you'd lose views. But with our channel, the views just keep growing. Even if we stopped making videos, the views would grow. But we do feel pressure to create new content. So now we're trying to up our output and make at least 2 to 3 videos a month, because we're a very small operation. So we do feel that pressure, and also it's just good to put out new content. It's great advertising for your brand.
Would you say it's not just advertising but also retention?
And retention, yeah, just it keeps growing. You have to keep creating new content. Yeah, and it's also great to have something to post on your social networks. You can't just say, hey, remember this video from 5 months ago. You want to say, hey, here's a new video, So I think that's important as well.
Well, it's completely different because we make a narrative. We've made 3 seasons, each that's about an hour's worth of content divided into, sort of web-sized snack episodes plus behind-the-scenes videos. But when we're not in production and we don't have a new show to roll out, we don't have new video to put up. We make our behind the scenes and extra features stuff kind of last for many months by putting them out one a week. But between the seasons, all we can do is just keep reminding you to watch the old stuff and put up related kind of content.
And I assume there's some kind of elaborate scheduling that goes on to plan all this.
Yes, very elaborate. We call it an editorial calendar.
Yes.
Yeah,
no,
so
I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time kind of planning what's going to happen every single day when we're rolling out, and preparation for rolling out, and then during the period of time when we have new episodes coming out, because this is the time when you can advertise. As you say, this is the time when you can say, come and look, come and look, come and look, we got something new.
And so have you found, in those interim times when you don't have a new season or it's in between seasons, have you found content that has been really sticky? Like, does some of it work better than others, or?
Well, anytime a new kid, a new classroom, a new library finds an episode or two, then we find that they go through our entire catalog. So anytime a new user comes in, they'll go through the contents that's there. I won't be spending a lot of time looking at what they're doing or encouraging them to do it, because I'll be busy either raising money to do another new season, writing the new season, or on set producing it. So, I can't be busy with that part at that time.
Right. And Bryce, what about across your channels? Nothing. Okay.
Not so much to add there.
Okay, no problem. And because this is all interactive mediums, where does user feedback come into all this in terms of what you're programming and how you're approaching it? Like, how much are you listening? How much are you ignoring them?
Well, we listen to the parents of our fans, I should say. I mean, the parents are fans, which is really cool.
Toddlers can't type.
Yeah, they try to, and it's funny because occasionally we'll get a comment. We get actually a lot of comments in our videos that are literally just BHHLL. Like, I can tell the kids got on the keyboard and typed something, which is hilarious. But no, we do listen. Like, when parents leave comments on our Facebook page, we do listen. And the recent videos that we've made, the traditional videos, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, we made that recently. That's our newest video. That's because we polled the audience. We said basically, hey, what video do you want us to make? And they chose that one overwhelmingly. They said, we want this video. So we made it. And so they were a big part of that decision. And I think, yeah, it's good to get their feedback.
Well, we give we get a lot of feedback. Mostly it's like, when's the next season coming, and things like that. Sometimes we'll get a little an idea for a kid about a mystery, which we definitely put in our back pockets just in case we get the chance to make that. But mostly we really give kids specific things to interact with us on. We ask for their ideas about things. We invite them to write book reviews for our library site. We have a lot of interactive material. We have polls on our site and quizzes and so on. So we really direct them to interact with us in the ways that we want them to, rather than asking them to co-create the series with us, which would be problematic.
Yeah, in our case, we're still making that transition, I would argue, from a B2B company to a B2C company. And so it's been a really big, concentrated effort on our entire team's behalf to really educate everyone else, corporate-wide, as to like the importance of the importance of the consumer, and the importance of having community managers in place, and the importance of actually engaging and talking about ideas and concepts and exciting new episodes and new features of Picotunes and things like that with the community at large. That is still something that us, for example, we're way behind on, I would argue, because it is also coming back down to that dividing up resources amongst so many brands and so many different potential conversations that you could be having, and the hundreds of thousands of videos on YouTube and stuff like that we could be tapping into due to this is a clip of this here and that's a full episode there and all these different things. It's very, very, very difficult to manage all of that in a really comprehensive way that really speaks to the brand still. And I think that's the biggest challenge that I've encountered in trying to deal with this problem is doing it in a way that feels genuine, and in a way that you guys can do, and without having to put on a huge amount of additional effort or burden, so to speak, on a creative who's like, I've got this amazing idea for a new show, and that's great. The show's moving forward, and you can make those requests if they start to engage with an audience at large. But they're really deep in on making a new television show, or they're really deep in on making a new project of some kind with us, and it's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of extra work to do that engagement and do it in a way that's authentic and meaningful and actually going to grow. So grow your audience rather, and that relationship. So that trust capital, so to speak, is really important to us. And we have actually held back on trying to put together a haphazard solution in favor of trying to figure out the right solution. So we only have one brand, I would argue, that we're doing that in a real strong way right now, and that's Yo Gabba Gabba. And it's because we have the creators heavily involved on that front, and they got their start on YouTube. And that's one definite example. And even then, it's still you want to be able to respond at 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday night and make sure that someone who has a burning question still gets that answered, and at a time in which it's still timely and important for them. So it's a huge challenge. It's a huge, huge, huge challenge.
And you can't do it without a phone, Lana.
Ask the guys in Paris who stole it. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's 15 minutes? Okay, so I just actually, before we're going to open up the floor to questions in a minute or two, but I was saving maybe the best or most difficult question for last. It's monetization. Probably everybody's wondering about that because, you can put stuff up, but you're all trying to earn a living doing this. So, how, for example, Jill and Billy, how are you monetizing this content?
How much money do you make exactly?
I did not ask that.
Well, obviously there's, the Google AdWords and things like that, But in the last couple months, we're trying to make that just, extra petty cash from you because we want to move on and sell other things for our brand. So, we've moved on to selling DVDs and CDs and posters and stickers and things like that. And these are things that parents have asked us for. We never thought we were going to sell DVDs. In fact, we thought it was going to be strictly digital. And we thought, well, maybe we'll sell, digital downloads. But actually, the parents overwhelmingly wanted a DVD, which we were really surprised with.
Still, this is recent, obviously.
Yeah, very recent. We did a Kickstarter campaign because we were unsure. We weren't really, maybe that the interest isn't really there. So we did a Kickstarter campaign, and we got double what we asked for. So we're okay. This is legit. So we did a full run of DVDs and sold those out almost immediately. So parents really do want DVDs, and actually Bryce and I talked a little bit about that last night. They want to be able to put their kid in front of half an hour of content, and YouTube's great, but unless you're using a playlist or unless you're watching a video that's 30 minutes long, it doesn't quite work for parents who want to put their kid down for half an hour so they can cook dinner. So a lot of parents want a DVD. So that's something that we're now obviously exploring is DVDs and CDs. So it's changed a lot for us, especially in the last 9 months. Initially, it was just YouTube paying YouTube AdWord money, but now it's moving kind of away from that into CD and DVD sales, and T-shirt sales and things like that.
Have you looked at purely digital downloads yet, like iTunes or anything
we are
like that?
looking into that right now, but once it's there, it's there. Like what's great about iTunes, like we have all of our songs available on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify and all these websites. Once it's there, it's there. You don't have to worry about it. But I think parents, they want the physical thing. They want that. But yeah, we're exploring the digital download option.
I guess I guess I can't eat creative satisfaction, so I have to worry about money. Ruby has sort of been R&D in a lot of ways. So we've explored many ways of making money online. We've built a store. We've got we've tried different kinds of advertising: pre-roll, post-roll, mid-roll. We've got affiliate marketing on our sites. We've done a bunch of different stuff. But really, when I first conceived of a teen detective show, I wasn't really thinking of it as just a web series. I was thinking this is something that could go to other platforms that where you can make money more readily at this time, that maybe this is just sort of the calling card, the beginning of developing the show. And now we have CBC as a partner, so we're reaching a bigger audience, and we'd love to see the show spin off into a television series, a book series, video games, so on. So really, we didn't, when Twitter launched, nobody was saying it. They didn't think about making money with it in the beginning. And so it took many years before it started making money. The same with Facebook. We were kind of, thinking, well, they can do it, so can we. So we thought we'd start by building something and then figuring out later on how to make money with it. And we distribute the show internationally now. We have a distributor. We're selling it to broadcasters in different languages. We can recut our seasons as kind of 60-minute movies that are more compatible with traditional broadcasts. So there are a lot of possibilities.
We are not, thankfully, super beholden to what we're making directly on YouTube or on PicoTunes or any of other video delivery platforms that are strictly digital at this point in time. We have great partnerships with other companies that are more traditional digital delivery platforms, such as Google Play or iTunes or Hulu or Netflix. And so those are very much ongoing, and those are traditional sort of deals. In the case of YouTube, we've really approached this with a very open mind and a very creative set of priorities. So figuring that out with them as to what would be the best way to make money. So everything from monetizing pirated uploads to actually monetizing on these new channels in the advertising sense of it, and then also the subscription video on demand service with them. All of those different services have all been built off of a core unified set of library content. And that library content now is very flexible and very movable to a whole bunch of different platforms. So that's our big priority.
Great. So we have about 5 minutes left. Do we have any questions in the audience? Oh, there's one back there.
Yeah, hi, Bryce. Just with respect to as it's very early for you, but as your revenues are generating between AVOD and the apps, on AVOD, I mean, that's in terms of the server on the cost side, that all those costs are on the YouTube side. On your app, how do you calculate your cost of delivering a half-hour program to someone watching it? Do you know what the cost is down to that level? How much?
I can't actually say. I have a very elaborate equation that determines. It's basically users using the service divided by cost of bandwidth delivery in that particular month. That's kind of the long and short of it. And so you get an idea of what each user cost is on average. And then because we're billed monthly, we usually then divide that by 30. So we get a daily actual per user sort of price point, and then we can use that number to figure out what our actual daily per user value is. So as long as the value of the subscription is higher than the cost of the delivery, we're in
Is
a
it
good
like
place.
pennies or dollars?
It's pennies. It's
that
quite
help?
small.
But and you guys have developed the back end internally. There must be vanilla services that do this for apps.
There absolutely are. And for example, we're using a mixture of different backend services, but predominantly AWS. So Amazon Cloud Delivery for CloudFront delivery. that's really where a lot of our costs come into play. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of different options on that front now. But a year and a half or so ago, when we first started experimenting with the technology side of it and the delivery side of it, Amazon was just the only logical choice. So.
And last one, just between YouTube versus apps. I mean, you have Pico Tunes, which is all the shows together. Are you also planning on launching individual show video apps? Do you see that as a future?
It's not out of the question. What we'd rather do, though, is provide a more customized experience inside of Pico Tunes for the parents to tailor the actual app to what they feel their kids need or want at a particular time. And we've got some pretty cool ideas on that front as to how to do that.
Hi there. Bryce again. You kind of had a chuckle when you were talking about defensive copyright protection.
Yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit more? I have no idea what that means and how that's so fun.
It's super fun. It's super fun. So I am also the type who gets super excited about Excel sheets. That would, help to color that story a bit. But realistically, defensive copyright comes down to a few things. Once you have all your content uploaded to YouTube or any other sort of digital platform that actually has capacity to control those things, particularly it's YouTube. Dailymotion has some similar services in place, but YouTube's the predominant industry leader there for sure. What you can do is decide what you'd like to do with the content that you're now finding is actually pirated or uploaded by fans. And it's very hard to determine what's what. And there's a lot of very creative ways to avoid detection and all these other things. So what my challenge becomes is, and the fun part about it becomes, is actually policing that. And the sort of like the cowboy nature of the whole environment is it's really Wild West. It's really, really crazy. It's very aggressive. And we're constantly dealing with borderline international disputes with partners over certain things that got moved to places they shouldn't have, or being sold or released with advertising on them in places that they shouldn't have. And then in addition to that, us actually going and saying, well, it's actually our copyright at the end of the day, and how do we best nurture that copyright in a way that's not going to alienate fans and therefore put it in a bad light, at the same time as very much so alienate people that are trying to exploit it for money. So we've been doing a lot on that front, and it's been really, really fun to actually see the piracy numbers go down, fan uploads go up, our number of likes, dislikes go down because of these strategies, and our number of likes going up because we're offering higher quality material. And in addition to that, Teletubbies is a great example, launching a dedicated channel of content that we have worldwide rights to, which is always an incredible challenge. Generally, we do have worldwide rights to everything, but we don't necessarily have it free at a particular time or a particular geography. So Teletubbies, here's the official one, and here's this massive amount of fan-uploaded content that we don't want to necessarily cannibalize, but we'd love to say, we're offering the better quality content. So when you're ready to come and see the it in HD and 16:9, which has never been done before, come and check it out at our channel versus what's available in the more fan-uploaded content, which is generally garbage. So.
Ken? I'm just kidding. I think we're just about out of time. So I'd like to thank the panel very much. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today. So thanks, guys. And
thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Lana. And thank you to our panelists, Billy, Jill, and Bryce, for a really interesting discussion.